Hello. Happy New Year, my loves. Welcome back to the Space Gulag. Today we're going to find out what would have happened had Count Dooku killed his master, Darth Sidious. Before we begin this video, special thanks to our patrons, voice actors, everyone else part of my team. Want a chance to win a free lightsaber in the next giveaway? Watch the end of the video, I'll tell you exactly how you can win. Our story begins shortly after the Battle of Geonosis. Count Dooku was outraged. He and Palpatine had been planning the Clone Wars for more than a decade, and yet for whatever reason the Republic just jumped down the throats of the Separatists on Geonosis. The battle was absolutely terrible for the CIS, and quite frankly, Dooku wasn't sure why it happened the way it did. While Dooku wasn't a solar sailor, he looked at everything in his records trying to see if the Jedi were meant to arrive on the planet. Initially, Palpatine hadn't planned on Kenobi discovering the clone facilities in Kamino. Of course, everything ended up working out in his favor, but for someone like Dooku, he wasn't exactly thrilled. He was in the dark. The plan was for the droid armies to invade a planet in the Mid-Rim, with the intention of scaring the Republic enough into forcing a vote to give Palpatine more power, but that clearly wasn't the case. Dooku thought throughout his trip from Geonosis to Coruscant. He couldn't help but think that his master was setting him up for failure. Dooku thought back and reflected on the past, and of course on the present. It seemed like he was just as expendable as Maul was, and that was rather unsettling. Dooku pondered over all of his accomplishments since Qui-Gon's death, and while he would have rather had his former student with him along the way, it made Dooku realize the insignificance of the value he had in relation to Skywalker. Dooku knew all about the long-term plan, and yet for whatever reason it never crossed his mind, till now. Palpatine wanted Skywalker to replace him. That was Skywalker's purpose. Of course, in Dooku's mind, having Skywalker as an apprentice would be great, but truthfully, he was a larger threat than anything else. Dooku had an idea. While it seemed rather unproductive, he was going to try and kill his master. Was it extreme, and maybe even unlikely? Sure. But Dooku had his plans. He had someone who would take up his mantle if he died, someone who would do what he wanted them to do. Dooku sat idle in his solar sailor until it arrived on Coruscant. Dooku placed on his Sith outfit, losing the cape that he so often wore. Dooku concentrated momentarily until the ship landed in the industrial sector of Coruscant. He stepped out of his ship and was greeted by his master. Sidious wasn't aware of anything, nor did he feel it in the Force. Dooku bowed to his master and began talking with him as the two of them started walking forward. Sidious then stopped in his tracks, and Dooku turned around. The Sith Lord asked Dooku if he was planning on betraying him. Dooku stood silently for a moment, and before he could respond, Sidious ignited two lightsabers and leapt towards his apprentice. Dooku shot lightning out of his fingertips and stepped back, holding his blade in his hand. Sidious would stop short from landing a blow on Dooku. Sidious swung forward and Dooku leaned back, avoiding the strike before igniting his own lightsaber. Dooku clashed with his master. Sidious swung both of his blades with pure speed. Dooku beat back his master, pushing his blade forward. The Dark Lord of the Sith was pissed off, and he truly couldn't believe that his student had betrayed him. But even Sidious knew he couldn't take this fight lightly. In all actuality, Sidious resented the idea of dueling with Dooku. While he was stronger with the Force than his student, Dooku was an incredible duelist. Sidious darted around, leaping from the ground and striking at every different point on Dooku, missing every other strike and having the other ones deflected. Sidious forgetting that Dooku's master was Grandmaster Yoda, of course. Dooku stepped back, not moving his left hand from his back and continuing to fight Sidious with one hand. Sidious used both of his blades, trying to leverage an advantage, but proving to no avail. Sidious knew more than anything that this was a fight for his life, for his legacy as a Sith Lord. He couldn't just give this up, especially not to a former Jedi like Dooku. Dooku parried and dragged his solar sailor around the bay towards Sidious with the Force, clipping Sidious in the back and catching his robe before he could get away. Sidious tumbled to the ground and looked back up at Dooku. Sidious hoped that Dooku would fall into his trap, but he didn't. Dooku hauled his blade forward, but didn't step forward. As Sidious shot lightning from his hands, the Count defended himself, blocking every shot of electricity coming from his former master's hands. Dooku stepped forward and nearly regretted his decision as Sidious rose from the ground, igniting his lightsabers once more, twisting around and slashing at Dooku. He thought he secured the advantage, but he kept swinging. Dooku moved forward with tremendous speed to block every strike before shooting lightning at Sidious and hitting him in the stomach. Dooku began his offense, beating back and moving his second hand to his lightsaber to amass more strength in each strike. Sidious saw any advantage he had disappear. Sidious misstepped and Dooku saw his only advantage, cutting down one of Sidious's blades, dropping the Sith Lord to one remaining weapon. Dooku continued to push forward and then used his patience to move back, seeing Sidious overwhelmed. The Dark Lord tried his best to kill Dooku as he lunged forward with all of his strength, and yet it proved to no avail as he lost his saber hand. Dooku threw his elbow backward into Sidious's face and the Dark Lord fell to the ground. And Sidious looked up. Dooku said, "It is the way of the Sith," and then cut down Sidious without any mercy. Dooku took a deep breath. He held up his lightsaber and then sheathed his weapon, looking down and then kicking the body to make sure it was truly dead. Dooku was now the Sith Lord of the galaxy, and yet he didn't really care for it. Dooku wanted to bring an end to the Republic, believing the Republic was bad for the galaxy, and that was the entire reason he joined Sidious to begin with. And now it was time to deal with the Republic and the Jedi. Dooku stepped over Sidious's body and made his way for the altar room. Dooku collected some artifacts and then returned to Sereno, his home world. Dooku had established plans for the Clone Wars thanks to Sidious, and now he was going to act on it nearly immediately. Dooku left Coruscant after burning the body of Sidious to ensure his permanent death. When he arrived in his own territory, instead of following a specific game plan to make the Republic look weak, to which Palpatine could lead a resurgence against the Separatists, Dooku would put his foot on the gas and not let up. There was no reason to give the Republic any sort of advantage. On the other hand, Dooku knew he had the ability to seize victory, because he knew everything he needed to know about the Republic's military infrastructure. The shipyards at Kuat, the cloning facilities on Kamino, and every other key point along the Republic lines. Dooku prepared every fleet and prepared every leader to do what he needed them to do. Dooku sent Mar Tuk and Wat Tambor to Ryloth, Asajj Ventress and a group of droids to Toydaria to force the king to join the Separatists. Admiral Trench would lead an assault on Christophsis, and General Grievous would be sent to Mulinist to recover a superweapon called the Malevolence. While Dooku originally had the resources and the perfectly placed strategy to win, the only planet the Separatists would hold after nearly a couple of months of the war would be Ryloth. Mar Tuk's fleet held against Skywalker, but truthfully, it wasn't a very successful beginning to the war for the Separatists, especially with Admiral Trench's pronounced death at the Battle of Christophsis. Dooku gathered his operatives and expressed his disappointment. The Republic got really fortunate with the Malevolence being destroyed, and even more so with winning the hyperspace routes from Jabba the Hutt. Dooku set up a new plan for the Separatists. Their events would be rather unfortunate in the past, but there was one key to every defeat, except for one. Anakin Skywalker was at Christophsis, Tatooine, and the Battle of the Malevolence. While he wasn't at Toydaria, Master Yoda was a rare exception, and his fleet was damaged over Ryloth. Dooku made it evident that he wanted Grievous to kill or capture Skywalker whenever he had the opportunity. A lot of the Republic's early success came from the brilliance of Anakin Skywalker, but Dooku wasn't going to hold back. The Separatist war machine was 10 years in the making, and the Republic was as well, but trying to catch up. There were 1 million more clones that were ready for the front lines soon, some of them already being shipped off Kamino at the moment. Instead of working through the Rishi Moon, the Separatists would march down the throats of the Republic. Their fleet was large enough to defeat the Republic at Kamino, and instead of trying to be clever with the commandos, Dooku was going to throw as much as he could at Kamino with the intention of burning Tipoca City to the ground. Dooku had no need to keep the clones around. The droid armies were perfect because they were entirely programmable. Before Dooku could launch his preemptive invasion of Kamino, someone emerged from death. Admiral Trench survived the Battle of Christophsis, and because of its survival, Dooku believed it would be best if he led the invasion of Kamino. Trench would be the perfect fit for a space battle, and as for the ground, Grievous and Ventress would be perfect for that match as well. Currently, Ventress was already on Kamino, but because of the Separatist success away from Anakin Skywalker based on previous battles, Dooku pulled the largest fleet seen in the entire war to Kamino. The fleet was full of battleships, and behind those battleships were Lucahults, with enough landing vessels to take over half of the Outer Rim. Commando droids, super battle droids, Magna Guards, and the best of the best from the Separatist forces. Dooku launched the assault, and within hours the Separatist fleet would catch the Republic off guard. There were a few Venators in space, but most of the defense fleet above Kamino was made up of support ships. Even worse was a lack of communication that made its way towards Republic forces. The Jedi on Kamino was only Shakti, and she was left to defend the clones by herself. When the Separatists arrived, the Republic immediately requested for reinforcements, but it proved to be useless. Admiral Trench was quick to dismantle the Republic forces and deploy the landing transports to Tipoca City. Admiral Trench would deploy 3 battleships at the surface of the planet so they could bombard the cloning facilities after the droids went in and stole the clone trooper Gino. When the droids arrived, the clones outnumbered the droids. That was perfectly fine. Most of the clones were still working through their training. The commandos and super battle droids cleared a path for Asajj Ventress to get to the clone trooper Gino. And instead of Asajj working towards fighting Shakti, she took the clone trooper Gino and departed. The clones worked rigorously to defend their home, but when the commando droids broke into the control room, they shut down the shield generators, and within moments, the entire cloning facility would begin to tumble into the sea. The droid battleships didn't stop their bombardment. Their heavy cannons unloaded into the cloning facilities and crushed every escape line. Inside, clone troopers, battle-ready, were ripped to shreds, and those who survived began to suffocate under the crushing weight of the Kaminoan seas. Shaak Ti was still alive, and she tried her best to keep anyone safe. The Kaminoans themselves were killed like the animals they were in the process. As for the clones and the cadets, they were stuck with nowhere to escape. As the Separatists continued their bombarding, the few pockets of air were cleared out. Shaak Ti's final moments of life would be the heartbreak as she watched clone cadets, eyes full of terror, knowing that she couldn't save them from an excruciating death. The worst part is that when the Republic reinforcements did arrive in a combination of two fleets, one under Saesee Tiin, the other under Eeth Koth, the two of them would also be ripped apart. Their numbers were far inferior, and the Republic Navy hadn't begun mass production of Venators yet. They were currently working on it at Kuat, but they were struggling. The Separatists were filled to the brim with powerful Providence-class destroyers and a multitude of other battleships. The Battle of Kamino would be a heavy loss for the Republic. Such an early loss was devastating. It left around 400,000 clone troopers left, able to fight. There was no one else other than the remaining Jedi, who were already too thinly spread out across the galaxy. Dooku watched the Republic begin to crumble and decided to take a daring move, sending Grievous's fleet to the core world of Anaxis. It would open the path up to the core and allow the Separatists a chance to get to Kuat. At the same time, Admiral Trench would be dispatched to Corellia. The Clone Wars were off to a brilliant start now, especially after the early war setbacks. The Republic was currently on its heels, and it had very little strength in trying to fight back the advancements of the droid armies. As for Ryloth, Dooku decided it was time to move Martuk away from the blockade, because he made an agreement with Mandalore. The people of Ryloth were nearly starved to death, and Cham Syndulla and his group of rebels were slaughtered swiftly. But Duchess Satine pleaded with Dooku to allow the Neutral Systems Coalition to provide support to the people of Ryloth. The only reason it worked was because Mandalore was a neutral system, and their supplies wouldn't be backed by the Republic. Dooku's plan was already working fully, and with a crushing Republic defeat coming around the corner, the Jedi and the clones looked to be backed into a corner. With the Outer Rim territory under the control of the Republic, Dooku had Asajj Ventress launch an invasion on Tatooine and Nal Hutta in a means to wipe out the Hutts and take control of their hyperspace routes. The Republic was nearly entirely absent from the Outer Rim at this point, and so Dooku began putting the Geonosians to work. Their engineers had the blueprints for a super weapon, and their people were incredible workers. The Death Star would be under construction. Dooku placed the Death Star under said construction and pulled resources from the banking clan's deposits and transferred them to the Geonosians. With a battle won over Corellia, the Separatists had the opportunity to take materials from the former Republic worlds and deposit them on Geonosis. Truthfully, Dooku had all of his plans together. It was just a matter of time until he could set up his new government. Dooku also made a point to neutralize Anakin Skywalker. Dooku didn't ever go near the front lines, but he placed General Grievous on the front lines for that said purpose, because without Palpatine protecting his little pet, Dooku believed it was only a matter of time until Grievous would have his chance to kill Skywalker. Not that Anakin would be any match for the Jedi Killer. Truthfully, only those who used Form 1 would be a challenge for Grievous, like Kit Fisto, who nearly killed Grievous at the beginning of the war. Because, well, Form 1 had unorthodox swings. It was non-formal strikes inside the form. Every other lightsaber form was specifically oriented to have specific movements, which made Anakin susceptible to Grievous's enhancements. Regardless, Dooku pushed the Separatist fleets forward, and not long after, they would besiege Kuat. On Coruscant, the Republic was in terror. They were losing ground incredibly fast, and because of their loss of the ground, they couldn't keep up. The Chancellor of the Republic was the former Rodian Senator Anaconda Farr, and he was getting chewed up by his constituents. He was actually getting impeached at the moment, and they were going to fill his role with someone else, but they couldn't figure out who else to make Chancellor. In the Mid-Rim, small groups of clones were fighting their last battles. Mostly small outposts that were protected by more than a couple hundred clones with a couple of Jedi, either a Knight and a Padawan, or a Master and a Padawan. Separatist forces weren't showing any signs of stopping. The Jedi Order was losing Jedi consistently because their forces were getting overrun by the Separatists. The droids were programmed specifically to take no prisoners. Anyone who was fighting against them would be killed and/or executed if they surrendered. Though Dooku wasn't thrilled to find out about the struggles of the Death Star project on Geonosis, the truth is the tech they needed made sense, but putting together was a different story. The Geonosians were on the right track, but they needed a lot more time to work on the project. Dooku felt the weight of the war shifting into a heavy backpedal for the Republic. While council members of the Jedi Temple were harder targets for the droids to pick off, there were only a few of them still alive. those being Obi-Wan Kenobi, Plo Koon, Yoda, and Mace Windu. The rest of the council was consistently being replaced. Of course, Oppo Rancice never left the temple, but he was an exception of the Jedi that were in danger of being killed on the front lines. Skywalker was one of the only successful warriors during the Clone Wars, so Dooku planned a trap for him. He sprung the trap on Naboo, capturing the senator of Naboo, noticing they had some sort of bond while they were on Geonosis at the beginning of the war. Though once Dooku captured the senator, he made sure that Skywalker, his Padawan, and his men were on the planet. Dooku didn't really mind doing what he was about to do, but he decided that he would blame it on the Republic. When Skywalker and Tano traced the trail to Padme Amidala, they found a trap set. Currently, they were elite battle droids. Their entire purpose was to keep the Jedi distracted. Shortly after their arrival, the Blue Shadow virus would be released into the atmosphere by hyena bombers. At the same time, a small dispatched fleet under Martuk would eradicate Admiral Yularen and his defense fleet over Naboo, trapping Skywalker and his men. The battle droids stationed around the planet would eradicate the hangar bays and every means of possible escape, and then they would execute those still found alive. While Skywalker, Amidala, Tano, and the men of the 501st President of the planet were able to initially find breathing apparatuses, they would encounter a group of elite commando droids and they would fight till the oh-so-bitter end. The clones, the Senator, the Master, and the Student would fall victim to the Separatists on Naboo and the Blue Shadow virus. And as for Martuk, he would leave the planet, leaving the debris of the Republic fleet to crash into the capital city of Theed, making it look as if the Republic had bombed the people of Naboo with their own toxic weapon of mass destruction. The news of Skywalker's death would eventually make its way to the capital of the Republic, and it would be devastating for the people of the Republic. Anakin Skywalker, even without Palpatine, was referred to as a hero of the Republic, mostly because he was successful so often. Not long after Anakin's death hit the Republic, Admiral Trench would lead a second successful mission on Kuat, taking over the Kuat drive yards finally. On the other hand, General Grievous would be dispatched to Ringo Vinda to take on the remnants of the Republic fleet, while the rest of the Republic fleet retreated back to Coruscant. At this point, the Republic tried reaching out to call for peace, but Dooku wasn't looking for peace. He was looking to dismantle the Republic. Dooku's response to the Republic was a simple no, informing them that only a surrender would be acceptable. While Dooku could have used the clones to his advantage, he saw the entire dismantling of the Republic and the Jedi Order to be more worth it. That was his entire reason for joining Sidious to begin with. As the Republic no longer possessed a means of creating warships or clones, their fight was essentially over. The Separatists would launch a joint invasion of Coruscant, and the Republic fleet would be shredded mercilessly. It honestly wasn't a fair fight, nor a fight that the Republic could feasibly win. Instead of a ground invasion, Admiral Trench's flagship would drop into the atmosphere of Coruscant and float above the Coruscant skyline. Inside the flagship, Dooku would demand a Republic surrender, but with the Senators refusing the ultimatum, they would be obliterated. The entire Senate building would be destroyed, just like the cloning facilities at Tipoca City. While the Jedi watched the Republic crumble, they fled the system. Not too long after the Senate's demise, their Jedi Temple would too be destroyed, killing the still remaining members behind. With the Republic and the Jedi gone, Dooku would turn his sights to Mandalore. Currently, they led the Neutral Systems Coalition, and the Separatists just showed that they could wipe the floor with any challenger. Though the Neutral Systems Coalition wasn't going to fight, Satine and her constituents already planned on getting along with whoever won, whether that be the Galactic Republic or the Confederacy of Independent Systems. When Dooku messaged the Duchess, she informed him that the Neutral Systems Coalition was ready to begin governing with the Confederacy. Dooku was certainly pleased, and while he did attempt to overthrow the Duchess of Mandalore earlier in the war, he didn't see a reason to do it now. He did it because he was going to force the Neutral Systems to bend to his will, but now he no longer needed that. With the Jedi mostly wiped out and a mere few still alive, Dooku would take the Separatist Council and turn them into the new leadership of the galaxy. After a while, Dooku would take a seat from politics, and he would allow it to function naturally. Of course, that was after a good while, but overall it would be better than the Republic. As for Grievous, he'd be sent out across the galaxy to hunt down Jedi. Asajj Ventress, on the other hand, would continue to spend time with her master, being that she wasn't betrayed by him. Of the few Jedi to survive was the ever-so-elusive Obi-Wan Kenobi, who disregarded the Order and the fight after losing everything, so that he could return to Mandalore and wed the woman he fell in love with. Dooku's new galaxy would be one devoid of the Republic and its policies, and while the Death Star would be finished, it would be kept off the radar unless needed. It would also be left in the control of Admiral Trench because he was the leader of the military operations of the Confederacy. Trench, being all the more wiser than any of the Republic's personnel, would keep the massive space station a secret for years, only passing it on to those who followed in his role. While the Jedi were wiped out and the legacy of the Sith technically carried on through Dooku, the Force would actually find its own means of balance. Between the Jedi who still remained to be hunted down and Dooku and his student, the Force found itself in a place of peace and balance. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our story. Again, special thanks to Benjamin Wells, Pimp Daddy Bane, Icy Raptor, Apollo, Mad Many Studios, Jonathan, Anakin 003, Spencer Bird, and Flynn Van Cease for supporting the channel. Hit that like this video. I don't know what's coming next, but it is. See what up. I'm going to console crossover. Check out Twitch, community Discord, and Patreon. Support me in other ways. Don't pay attention to the scammer in the comment section. That's not me. If you see me, it looks like me. It has my official name. It has the official Pente Patrol Star Wars on it. I am not somebody that wants messages on Telegram. I will not give out my phone number. I am a very quiet person. I don't need my phone blowing up, okay? If you want to learn how to win a free lightsaber, go down below. There's a dock. You click on the dock. You write your name on the dock. You don't mess with the dock. I can see who's doing it. I'm giving away 3 lightsabers when we hit 50,000 subscribers. We just jumped up like 600 subscribers in the last couple of days, so you guys want to get some free lightsabers? Hit that subscribe button. I want to give them away before I move. I'm moving away in 3 weeks, so let's hit 50,000 subscribers before I move away, and let's talk about our story. So, first things first, I can always see the comments. Dooku is not beating Sidious. First of all, it's a what if. That's the whole point of a what if. What if happens? So that's kind of in the title. It's kind of implied in the title that it's going to happen. But actually, I could genuinely see Sidious being beat by Dooku. And why is that? Well, it's believable. Dooku's a great duelist. That's the truth. Dooku's only going to beat Palpatine in a duel. He's not beating him with the Force. And Palpatine also was a little bit afraid of fighting someone like Dooku because Dooku was a great duelist. He is seriously one of the best duelists in pretty much all of canon Star Wars, I'm pretty sure. Along with like Mace Windu and Sidious himself. Like, he is an absolute beast, and that's the point. The point is he's a beast as a duelist. You know, he's gonna take on Sidious without batting an eye, and I think it'd be very tense. But truthfully, I think Dooku could definitely come out on top. Out of 100 times fighting, I'd say 50-50. Honestly, I would take 50-50, and I would put money on it. I really would. I could see it happening 50-50. But yeah. So that being said, the CIS arsenal is absolutely massive. It is. They could have won the war before the war began, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to convey here. The point that I'm trying to convey is that the Separatists really could have just won the war. They really had no reason to keep in line with the Republic, but they did because that was part of the plan. The plan was to keep the Republic in the war so that Palpatine could do his whole plan. But without Palpatine, he doesn't need to do that. And, you know, I wanted to kind of give a little bit of tension, but truthfully, there's not going to be a lot of tension. The Separatists had so many forces, and you know, going off what the Kaminoans said, you know, 200,000 units ready and 1 million more on the way. Saying, for example, if even 200,000 of those clones got out of the cloning facilities before that horrendous Battle of Kamino, they're still not going to win. They're just not going to. The Republic just didn't have the forces to keep up with the Separatists. Even if they got those 1 million troops out, it would just prolong the war. I think the war in this video probably takes about 1.5 years, if that. I think 2 years at the very, very most. But this isn't like a long war. It's like a 1.5 years at the most, because, you know, after the first couple defeats, and I say the Malevolence does get defeated because Anakin Skywalker is literally an ex machina. He is just broken. With Anakin destroying the Malevolence, I think that the war would be prolonged, and I think you'd also win at Christophsis and also win that whole battle with Asajj and the whole hut space route thing. And Yoda is kind of an ex machina too in that situation. But after the situations kind of come to an end, I kind of see the Republic standing still. I think Anakin has like some skirmishes that he wins, but overall the Republic kind of gets crushed. They get the floor like swept. That's what happens. They get swept. It's like nasty, you know. And that's what's going to happen. You know, it happens like that. And after the Republic kind of loses their momentum, and especially after Battle of Kamino, I hope you enjoyed the cadets drowning. I really hope you enjoyed that. Happy New Year's. That's so sick. But gotta have fun with it. Come on, we love the clones. That's why I had to do it to you. Oh god. Okay. But after the Battle of Kamino, I mean, there's no stopping the Separatists. I mean, the Republic war machine wasn't really up until the second year of the war, which is kind of why I made an emphasis to put on to the Separatists kind of winning every space battle. The Republic has Venators, and I love Venators. I really do. They're my favorite ship in all of Star Wars, and I do mean that. But the truth is, they're not warships. They're carriers. They're really awesome carriers. They're like the coolest carrier ever. but they're still carriers. Providences are warships, and those things are nasty. And Admiral Trench's personal Providence, which is like a mega Providence, is even worse because it's a mega Providence. It's got like double everything, and it's kind of really good at killing things. So being that the Separatists are good at killing things and the Republic's kind of not good at killing things, there's only so long that they can keep killing things until they've done killed everything, right? So that's kind of what I went with. Satine staying alive, I think I'm going to get a comment about this. I'm predicting that I'm going to get a comment about this. No, it's not biased. She's a politician. Okay, the truth is she's a politician. She's going to survive. She knows how to survive. She knows not to, F around and find out. That's the truth. And like, you can disagree with me if you want, but there's a reason why Mandalore didn't get glassed when she was leading. There's a reason why Mandalore got glassed like a couple years after she was dead. In The Mandalorian, when they go back, or I think it was Book of Boba Fett, where they go back and show Mandalore getting bombed, there's a reason they got bombed and she wasn't their leader. Okay, so Satine being in power, she's not going to get killed by Dooku. Dooku is smart enough to be like, yeah, I could just march on you, but if the Neutral Systems Coalition, which is like 1,000 star systems, that's a lot of star systems. Let me just express, that's a lot of star systems, 1,000 star systems. If they all join the Separatists, there's no real reason for Dooku to be like, yeah, well, I'm going to kill all of you anyways. Like, he doesn't need to do that. Honestly, I think the result would actually be better than the Empire, and that is the truth. I genuinely think the result would be better than the Empire, and that's why I said the Force is balanced at the end, because the result is better than the Empire. Dooku's not like a true Sith, and even if he was, Asajj Ventress isn't like a true Sith. She's like a dark side user. That's basically it. They're both like dark side users. You can convince me otherwise if you want, but I'm following the canon of the Disney canon in this. I'm not following Legends. I'm just following what I see in the Disney canon. For that particular model. But I mean, with the few Jedi still left and Grievous having his lightsaber, Easter egg hunt across the galaxy, I mean, it's going to be balanced. There's going to be balance in the Force. Anakin delivers a balance by, jumping into a virus on Naboo. Also, we're just going to act like I didn't talk about a massive war crime, dropping gas on a planet and eradicating the entire planet's population. That's like a war crime that we're just going to skim over. That was like a paragraph, and I just acted like it didn't happen, just kept on coasting. It's like, yep, Anakin, Ahsoka, the 501st, Padme, all of Naboo, everything's dead, but we're going to keep going. So, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below and subscribe so you can win a free lightsaber. Anyways, Happy New Year, guys. This was a dark story to start off the new year, but I got some good stuff coming out soon. Anyways, I love you all. Spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.